Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the apology video titled Holding Myself Accountable from James Charles Dickinson, which was published on April 1, 2021. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll go through the background of James Charles Dickinson. I'll talk about his apology video, and I'll offer my analysis. James Charles Dickinson was born in Bethlehem, New York on May 23, 1999. He graduated high school in 2017. 2 years before, he started posting makeup tutorials on his YouTube channel. He was also active on other social media. A tweet of him retaking his senior portrait became extremely popular in 2016. After this, he was hired to be the spokesmodel for CoverGirl, a company that makes cosmetics. In 2018, he launched his own makeup collection in conjunction with another brand named Morphe Cosmetics. As his fame continued to grow, Dickinson was involved in a number of controversies, many of them related to insensitive or offensive social media posts that he made. His situation kind of reminds me of the character Sideshow Bob in The Simpsons. There was, I think, a few episodes where he was like walking around in a yard and stepping on rakes. So every time he would step on a rake, the handle would come up and hit him in the face. And then he would just start to walk another direction and he would step on another rake. That's kind of what happened to Dickinson. It was like every time he left one controversy, he just walked right into another one. In May of 19, another controversy saga would begin with another beauty YouTube content creator named Tati Westbrook. I am summing up a lot here in a few words. This was a big adventure that involved a lot of different moving parts. Westbrook released a video titled Bye Sister. She made a number of accusations against Dickinson, including suggesting that Dickinson tried to deceive a romantic partner. Dickinson replied with a video titled Tati, in which he apologized to his audience and to her. That video didn't go over too well. Shortly after this, he uploaded another video titled No More Lies, where he defended himself against Westbrook. Many would argue he mounted a successful defense. A little over a year later, Westbrook uploaded another video where she appears to blame Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson, suggesting they manipulated her into making the video Bye Sister. This brings us to February of 2021 and the topic of controversy related to the video that Dickinson would release on April 1. There were a few allegations made against Dickinson, including those from two 16-year-old males. One accuser said that Dickinson had sent sexually oriented text messages, including some that contained unsolicited photos that, let's just say, weren't rated PG. Some of this activity allegedly occurred even after Dickinson was made aware of the accuser's age. Dickinson said that the male had identified himself as 18, later admitting he was 16. After that, Dickinson stopped communicating. So he thought he was 18, but then it turns out he was 16. At that point, Dickinson, again, is making the statement that he walked away. The second accuser came forward in March of 2021 and said something fairly similar. For example, Dickinson allegedly kept having contact with him even after he knew the correct age. This brings us to the apology video released on April 1. I will sum up this video. Much of this will be paraphrased. Dickinson starts by noting the accusations that have been made. He said to record this video, he was only using notes. It wasn't scripted like the No More Lies video was 2 years before. So this is really suggesting that the video will be rough around the edges compared to that other video. He apologized and noted that this was embarrassing. He said he was wrong and there were no excuses. He also acknowledged that it was April Fool's Day, which could be confusing, but the video was serious. He released it on that day simply because he wanted to get it out there as soon as possible. He also issued a trigger warning. He talked about how he flirted online with two people who were 16. He initially thought they were 18. Once he found out about their ages, he blocked them immediately. So I talked about this before. Once he saw what they posted on social media, he wanted to defend himself. He had all the evidence, which he refers to as receipts. and this evidence in theory would prove his innocence. But he realized that all this was his fault. He said he didn't conduct the research necessary to find out their true ages, even though this research would have been easy to do. He was being reckless. Then he stays with that idea of being reckless. He ponders the idea that he is careful in so many areas of his life, like in his business, but he's reckless in relationships. He tried to explain this by saying he was desperate. He went on to talk about how frustrating it has been to find romantic interests. He's looking for someone to make him laugh, but he's not very experienced. He is getting a lot of attention due to his fame, almost like he was overwhelmed by fame and did not know how to adjust. He talked about how he started to realize that people manifest unusual behaviors when confronted with a celebrity. Being famous is normal for him, so it would never have occurred to him that it was not normal for other people. He now needs to be aware of this and be more responsible. He talked about how when influencers make mistakes, they upload apology videos where they just repeatedly say they're sorry, an accurate observation. He said this is not helpful. Only making changes is helpful, and that is what he is committing to do. In the future, he will be more careful. Now he completely understands the circumstances that led to his behavior. He will be taking an indeterminate amount of time off to reflect and further educate himself on this topic. Now moving to my analysis. First, I'll break down the general strategy. This apology video is vastly superior to the typical one that we see on YouTube when this type of situation occurs. I don't know if he had any help with this or not, but in some ways, it was really genius. I would categorize this apology video as set the bar low, subtle defense, awareness, over-apology, vulnerability, and reform with a low specificity modifier. I'll explain what I mean by this category. He starts by essentially saying that this won't be a good apology video, not as good as other videos he has done. He sets the bar low. He keeps the expectations to a minimum, under-promise and over-deliver. He continues by saying he can prove he's innocent. He has those so-called receipts. This is the subtle defense. It's like offering a convincing defense without actually having to produce evidence. Pretty smart. Moving on, with this in mind, he's not going to offer this fabulous defense that he has just waiting outside of the shot. It's all ready to go. But no, he's not going to use it because he has gained insight. This is the awareness piece. Again, an intelligent move. He now realizes that he was responsible, therefore he's really sorry to everybody, everywhere in the universe, right? So we see this over-apology. He's apologizing for everything to everyone. This is like an unconditional surrender, except apology version. He's making no excuses, he's sorry, and that's it, full ownership. This technique doesn't allow critics any room to criticize. He's rushed ahead and self-criticized to a maximum degree. It's like, you can't call me bad because I'm already worse. Then we see he moves to vulnerability. He offers a plausible excuse for his behavior without really framing it as an excuse. Again, he was saying that he was desperate. He was confused about his position and how it changed in light of fame. This vulnerability stage humanizes Dickinson. Then, of course, we move to reform. This is where he's going to reflect and grow as an individual. Now that he has this newfound insight that has changed his life for the better. This stage will ensure he does not reoffend. So that takes us to the low specificity modifier. Dickinson was careful not to give too much information. He didn't admit to specific items contained in the allegation that could get him in trouble, like sending photos. Even though he gave out little information, Dickinson may still have hurt himself by limiting his defensive options. I'll talk about that in a moment. Looking at the execution of this apology video, it was excellent. This wasn't just an apology video. In one sense, it was a tactical masterpiece. Even though this apology video is quite impressive, it is not without its flaws. I'll cover 3 here. 1, Dickinson implied that he was not actively searching for younger people to be in a relationship with. Yet we see in 2020, when he was on Logan Paul's podcast, he said he was not attracted to older guys. So here we see he just didn't do his research. He didn't ensure consistency between this apology and past statements. If one is going to choose to be deceptive, at least show some pride in the work. 2, the recording level for this video was set way too low. This may have been a consequence of a hurried production process. Here in my studio, I have fairly substantial speakers, and if I had forgotten to turn the volume back down after watching this video, I would have alarmed the entire neighborhood with the sound. So it's one of those videos that really makes you keep the recording level in mind, because you want to make sure that after watching it, you turn it back down before you play something else. Moving to the third mistake, I mentioned before that Dickinson appeared to have limited his options, even though he didn't provide a lot of information. Dickinson admitted to flirting with individuals who were under 18. He didn't get specific about exactly what that means, but if this ever becomes an issue, like in court, he has limited his options by making those statements. Now, some people have said, okay, Dickinson made a few mistakes, but he's covered under the Romeo and Juliet law. Depending on the state, this law allows romantic interaction of different types between minors within a specified age range and others if the age difference is within something like 3 or 4 years. So first, it's important to keep in mind that 16 and 21 are 5 years apart. So already he would not be covered under this law, but there's actually more to it than that. If one were to assume if some case came up, the jurisdiction would be in California, where Dickinson lives, well, that's not how the Romeo and Juliet laws work in California. Rather, it works by saying that if there were fewer than 3 years between the perpetrator and the victim, the offense would be considered a misdemeanor instead of a felony. Most Romeo and Juliet laws involve a crime or no crime. In California, it is the degree of the crime that is determined by the law. Now, some might say, okay, fine, but the laws only apply to sexual activity. Actually, no. The laws apply to a variety of behavior, including sending and receiving explicit images or attempting to seduce a victim. Dickinson, again, did not admit to this, but it is contained in the allegations. Now, of course, Dickinson can mount a defense if anything should ever happen. For example, he didn't know the victims were underage. This could help him, and even though this defense is not allowed in many states, it is permitted in California. Either way, Dickinson locked himself into a story with this video. For example, now he can't deny ever having communicated with the alleged victims, and he cannot deny flirtatious behavior. So he's kind of moved himself down the road toward trouble. If he had not made this video, he would have all of his options still available. He could just not say anything. Not saying anything is often the best move. What's good for an apology video is rarely what's good for a legal defense. Continuing with my analysis, there seems to be little doubt that there will be an emphasis placed on Dickinson's use of the word desperate. It's hard to defend his behavior, but I do think it's worth considering that Dickinson finds himself in an unusual position. He's exceedingly young and yet has been catapulted to fame. There is no procedure for handling this. No one expects that type of outcome. If he was truly desperate before being famous, there's no reason to believe that the desperation level would change afterward. In some ways, celebrity status increases whatever a person already has. For example, if they have a lot of talent, those skills get refined. If they have empathy, they might be involved in charities and affect a lot of people. So they could help a few people before, but now they can help a wider number. But the increase can also apply to negative characteristics. For example, if there's a tendency toward drug use, that tends to be easier to act on when somebody is famous. Could it be that Dickinson was desperate and that desperation was only magnified because he became a celebrity? Being a celebrity can be exceedingly lonely. The case of James Charles Dickinson may simply be another situation of too much fame, too much power, and too much money too quickly. There is good news for Dickinson, however. If things don't work out with being a beauty influencer, he can always make a living writing apology videos. As internet influencers grow in number and popularity, and their impulsivity is now broadcast to a wider audience, the demand for apology video writing will be increasing for the foreseeable future. Those are my thoughts on the James Charles Dickinson controversy. Please Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be enlightening. Thanks for watching.